At the farthest edge of Imperial territory, where the map star lanes ended and deep space swallowed entire systems in darkness, Outpost KX-19 drifted quietly on routine watch. It was not an important station. It existed only to observe empty space and report anything unusual that might approach the Empire's frontier. Most days the sensor screens displayed nothing but distant stars, faint radiation waves, and the occasional cargo ship passing through the outer routes. Officers rotated through long shifts of quiet monitoring, expecting nothing to ever change. Then a sensor alarm broke the silence. A junior officer leaned closer to his console, assuming the system had picked up interference. It happened often in this region. Pulsars, solar winds, and deep space radiation sometimes confused long-range scanners. He initiated a quick recalibration and waited for the system to stabilize. The signal remained. He frowned and expanded the scan range. Something large had appeared far beyond the border of Imperial charts. At first it looked like a distant asteroid cluster, but the energy readings made no sense. The object was radiating power, far more power than any natural body should produce. He ran the scan again. The result forced him to sit upright. The system identified the object as a vessel. Not a fleet. Not multiple ships. One ship. Yet its energy signature was greater than the combined output of an entire Imperial battle group. He quickly alerted the command deck. Senior officers gathered around the sensor display while technicians began verifying the readings across every scanning array on the station. Thermal imaging, gravitational mapping, electromagnetic sweeps, each new scan confirmed the same impossible result. A massive warship was approaching Imperial territory. The commander studied the screen carefully. His experience told him something was wrong. No single vessel should produce that level of power. Even the Empire's largest dreadnoughts required support fleets to generate that kind of output. "Run the scan again," he ordered. The technicians complied immediately. The numbers did not change. Power levels remained impossibly high. The ship's structure appeared enormous, far larger than any known Imperial design. But what truly unsettled the officers was the technology signature embedded in the scan results. The identification system had recognized the engineering pattern. Human. For several seconds nobody spoke. Humanity existed only on the outer fringe of the Empire's maps. Their colonies were scattered, their fleets small, and their technology considered primitive compared to Imperial standards. They built modest patrol vessels and cargo transports, nothing capable of threatening even a minor Imperial station. Certainly nothing like this. "Check the sensors again," the commander said quietly. The crew ran deeper diagnostics this time. Long-range quantum arrays activated. Backup sensor relays connected to neighboring observation satellites. The entire station focused its scanning power on the approaching object. Again the results returned. A massive vessel. Ancient-looking construction patterns consistent with early human engineering. And power output that rivaled an entire Imperial fleet. The commander folded his arms and stared at the display, trying to find any explanation that made sense. Sensor errors could happen. Data corruption could happen. Even deliberate signal spoofing was possible. But 3 independent scanning systems were now confirming the same data. The object was real. The object was approaching. And every sensor on the station insisted on the same impossible conclusion. Somewhere in the darkness beyond the Empire's frontier, a human warship of unimaginable size was slowly drifting toward their territory. The commander felt a quiet unease settle over the bridge. Because the Empire kept careful records of every known human fleet. Their ships were small, predictable, and easy to track. Nothing in those records even remotely resembled the monstrous signal now moving across their sensors. Which meant only one thing. Either the scanners were lying to them, or humanity possessed a warship the Empire had never known existed. The Imperial commander refused to accept the report without verification. Human fleets had never built anything remotely close to what the sensors were describing. Their engineering capabilities were well documented, their shipyards monitored, and their technological progress carefully tracked by Imperial intelligence. Even if humanity had secretly constructed a new warship, it would not appear suddenly at the edge of the Empire with energy levels capable of rivaling an entire fleet. Yet the signal continued approaching. The vessel moved slowly through deep space, not following any known star lane or navigation corridor. It drifted like a silent giant emerging from the darkness between systems. More unsettling was its silence. No communication signals. No navigation beacons. No recognizable transponder codes. Just a massive object radiating impossible power. Imperial Command ordered a direct investigation. Outpost KX-19 launched a squadron of reconnaissance drones equipped with high-resolution scanners and visual imaging arrays. The small machines accelerated into the void, their feeds streaming directly back to the command center. For several minutes the drones detected nothing but distant stars. Then the first silhouette appeared. Even from extreme range the object dwarfed the drones. Its structure stretched across kilometers of empty space like a drifting fortress. The closer the drones approached, the clearer the details became. This was not a modern warship. Its hull was layered with thick armored plates, many of them cracked, scorched, or partially torn away. Deep impact scars marked the surface, as if the vessel had endured countless battles. Entire sections appeared melted and fused together by unimaginable heat. Parts of the outer structure had broken away completely, exposing skeletal support frameworks beneath. Yet despite the damage, the ship remained intact. Faint power signatures flowed across its hull like a slow heartbeat. Ancient reactors buried deep within the vessel were still operating, maintaining minimal systems even after centuries, possibly millennia, of drifting through space. Imperial engineers studying the drone feeds began recognizing patterns in the construction. The ship's architecture resembled early human engineering designs. Primitive compared to modern Imperial technology, yet brutally functional. Massive structural beams. Thick armor plating. Weapon ports carved directly into reinforced hull segments. But the scale was wrong. Human ships were never built this large. As the drones continued scanning, historical analysts began searching forgotten archives. Old exploration records, archaeological surveys, and fragments of ancient galactic history surfaced in the Empire's databases. Thousands of years earlier, long before the Empire expanded into this region, another civilization had dominated these systems. The Varkesh Dominion. Ancient records describe them as a powerful interstellar empire that controlled hundreds of star systems. Their disappearance had always been a mystery. 1 century they ruled the region. The next they were simply gone. No battle records explained their fall. No surviving fleets were ever discovered. Until now. The drifting warship matched the estimated timeline of the Dominion's collapse. Its construction style suggested it had been built during that era, long before the Empire even existed. Which meant the vessel was not a modern human creation. It was a relic. An ancient weapon from a forgotten war. And judging by its terrifying power output, humanity's ancestors had built something far more dangerous than the Empire had ever imagined. The reconnaissance drones continued circling the enormous vessel, feeding streams of data back to the Imperial outpost. Every scan confirmed the same unsettling truth. The ship was ancient, damaged, and clearly built thousands of years ago, yet its core systems were still functioning. For several minutes nothing changed. Then the power readings spiked. At first it was small, barely noticeable against the already massive energy signature. But the increase continued, rising steadily as if dormant systems deep inside the vessel were beginning to wake. Technicians immediately reported the shift. Energy conduits across the ship's structure began activating one by one. Thermal sensors detected heat spreading through long inactive reactor chambers. Internal power grids that had remained silent for centuries suddenly carried electricity again. The giant vessel was coming back to life. Mechanical structures slowly unfolded across its surface. Massive antenna arrays extended outward from armored compartments. Sections of the hull rotated as hidden weapon mounts shifted into operational positions. Across the Imperial Command network, alarms triggered simultaneously. Power levels increasing, one technician reported. multiple systems activating across the hull. No communication signals had been received from the vessel before. That changed seconds later. A burst transmission exploded across every frequency band. The signal was old, extremely old. Linguistic processors struggled to interpret the language pattern. It resembled human communication protocols, but the dialect was archaic, far older than anything used by modern colonies. Translation algorithms worked rapidly until fragments of meaning began appearing on the display. Automated defense protocol active. Mission parameters restored. Scanning surrounding space for Varkesh Dominion signatures. The officers on the station exchanged uneasy looks. The name appeared again in the next transmission. Dominion threat assessment in progress. Combat systems preparing for engagement. Historical records had already confirmed that the Varkesh Dominion vanished thousands of years earlier. If this vessel truly came from that era, its systems might still believe the war continued. More signals followed. Sensor beams from the warship swept across the surrounding region, analyzing every object within range. The Imperial outpost, its satellites, and the approaching patrol ships were all suddenly being scanned by the ancient vessel. The analysis lasted several seconds. Then another message arrived. Unknown fleet detected. Technology comparison in progress. Imperial officers watched the display in silence as the system processed the data. The Empire's technology had evolved through centuries of adaptation, conquest, and reverse engineering. Over time, fragments of many alien designs had been absorbed into Imperial shipbuilding. That mixture of technologies now created a fatal misunderstanding. To the ancient warship's automated intelligence, the Empire's systems carried enough similarities to its original enemy. The final transmission appeared moments later. Threat classification complete. Hostile Empire confirmed. Every weapon port across the ancient vessel began moving. Gigantic cannons rotated slowly into firing position. Reactor output surged as massive energy reserves flowed toward charging weapons systems designed for wars long forgotten. The officers at the Imperial outpost suddenly understood the situation with terrifying clarity. The warship had completed its analysis. It had mistaken the Empire for its ancient enemy. And after drifting silently through space for thousands of years, the automated hunter humanity created had finally found a new target. Imperial Command reacted instantly once the ancient warship's weapons activated. Emergency signals spread across nearby sectors, summoning every available fleet to intercept the vessel before it could advance deeper into Imperial territory. Battleships, cruisers, and defense carriers accelerated toward the coordinates transmitted by Outpost KX-19. But distance in space is unforgiving. The nearest fleets were still minutes away. The ancient human warship did not wait. Power surged across its massive hull as reactor cores buried deep within the vessel reached full output. Energy readings climbed far beyond the levels previously recorded. Weapon systems that had been dormant for thousands of years finished charging in seconds. Then the warship fired. The discharge did not resemble any conventional weapon used by the Empire. There was no visible projectile, no missile launch, no plasma burst. Instead, space itself seemed to collapse into a narrow line of blinding energy. The beam crossed the distance between the warship and Outpost KX-19 almost instantly. Imperial shields activated automatically, but they were designed to withstand modern weapons, not a machine built during a war powerful enough to erase civilizations. The beam pierced through the shield barrier as if it were mist. Moments later, the outpost vanished. The station's outer structure vaporized first. The central reactor detonated immediately after, scattering fragments of metal and plasma across the surrounding void. Within seconds, the entire facility had been reduced to expanding debris drifting through space. The ancient warship remained motionless. Its weapons began charging again. Minutes later, the first Imperial fleet arrived at the edge of the battlefield. Hundreds of warships dropped out of hyperspace and immediately detected the wreckage of the destroyed outpost. Sensor officers quickly redirected their scans toward the massive vessel responsible. The readings terrified them. Despite its age and visible damage, the warship's reactors were still increasing in power. Energy levels continued rising as if the machine had barely begun using its true capabilities. Military historians connected the final pieces of the puzzle. During humanity's earliest expansion beyond their home system, they had encountered the Varkesh Dominion, a massive empire that once ruled this region of the galaxy. Records suggested the Dominion possessed fleets large enough to conquer hundreds of star systems. Humanity had been weaker then. Outnumbered. Outmatched. So they built something desperate. A final weapon designed to hunt the Dominion until nothing remained. The ancient warship drifting before the Imperial fleet was that weapon. And history proved it had succeeded. Because the Varkesh Dominion no longer existed anywhere in the galaxy. Now the automated hunter had awakened again. Across the battlefield, the enormous vessel slowly rotated toward the newly arrived Imperial fleet. Its targeting arrays locked onto hundreds of ships at once while massive cannons along its hull prepared for another firing cycle. Imperial admirals stared at their tactical displays as the realization spread through their command networks. They had not discovered an abandoned relic drifting through space. They had awakened the last surviving weapon of a war humanity had already won.